Hello, 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 ladies, gentlemen, and others. It is your fella Kuro here, and today we have received an absolutely massive info dump, and by today I mean like 2 days ago, I'm a little late, coming directly from Bethesda Game Studios regarding Starfield. In case you were unaware of what Starfield is, it is Bethesda's new upcoming open world, sci-fi, space-faring RPG adventure experience, as well as the studio's first attempt at a new IP in the last 25 years, so it is kind of a big deal. It will be launching this November 11th, 2022, and personally, I have been very excited for this game, and there are many reasons that you should be as well, if you are not already. All of this information is coming from the newest episode of Bethesda's Into the Starfield series of video documentaries they have over on their YouTube channel, so if you want to keep yourself up to date directly, I will link that down in the description. Go over there, check those out, they're pretty good. So let's go ahead, dive on into this video, let's break it down and talk about some of the juicy details that they shared with us for the first time. So at the very start of this video, they introduce some of the lead developers on this project. People we already knew about, like Todd Howard, no big deal there, but there is one real big ticket piece of information here in this quick section of the video. That information being that Mr. Will Shen has the role of lead quest designer for Starfield. The reason that is a big deal is because Will Shen was the lead quest designer on Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC. Any of you guys that actually played Fallout 4 and Far Harbor will already know that Far Harbor is probably the single best piece of RPG content released from Bethesda Game Studios in the past plethora of years. It had a lot of weighty choices, deep involving dialogue, and it was just a very good, well-rounded piece of content that towers well above the rest of Fallout 4 and easily far above anything you're going to find in Fallout 76. So to hear that the lead quest designer for that DLC is taking the reins of quest direction for Starfield is a real relief and a breath of fresh air, if it means that the whole of Starfield's quest design will have that same level of depth and intricacy. Now, moving on and sticking to that same theme of depth, the very first point that the fellas talk about is character creation and development. Mr. God Howard himself, praise Todd, hallowed be thy name, states pretty directly that they are bringing back, or at least aiming to bring back, a lot of the hardcore old-school RPG elements and mechanics, things such as attributes, character traits, defining your character's background, and more, and they are attempting to do it in a new and fresh way.
And it's nice with Starfield to go back to some things we didn't do, the backgrounds, the traits, the defining your character, all of those stats. And I think there's so many games now that do those things that people are ready for something that does a lot of the things that, older hardcore RPGs, some that we used to do, doing those again in a new way.
That is really great news to hear because for the past several big-ticket Bethesda Game Studios releases, they've been consistently dumbing down the RPG elements and character-building systems further and further with each and every game, from Skyrim to Fallout 4 to Fallout 76. So, seeing a return in the fine-tuning of the stats of your character is sure to give the player a lot more feeling of control over the feel of their character, making you able to make it more unique and more your own. And in a single-player RPG, that is one of the biggest driving factors that keeps people playing, if you can create a new, unique character every single time. And to see that theory in motion, you really need to only look so far as your YouTube recommended page, because I know, don't you dare lie to me, there is an absolute shitload of Elden Ring videos there right now. And you know why? Because that game, first of all, is amazing, and second of all, it gives you absolute, complete control over every little tiny asset and facet of your character. I think I said asset, I meant to say aspect, but that's not important. That game is absolutely popping off, and that is because it gives you player freedom, and that's what we need in the next Bethesda Game Studios title. Further on the subject of character uniqueness, they move forward and touch on the graphics. Apparently, they're going absolute full nutty to buddy this time with the character models, going so far as to do things such as scanning in real-world models to increase the graphical fidelity and the realism of each and every character face that you're going to see in the game. This is similar to the photogrammetry things that I don't know if it's a system, a technique, whatever, that they've been doing in the past with their world spaces to make them feel more realistic and and intricate. And to be honest, it's about time, okay? We're tired of the old Bethesda potato face. This is the future, bitch. Now, after they finished waving their willies around with their Creation Engine 2 showing off the graphics, they move on to talk about the factions you're going to encounter in this game. Factions, of course, being an absolutely integral part of the Bethesda RPG experience, and it looks like they're really bringing their A-game this time around. They touch on 4 distinct factions during this time, which all have a very unique flair and seem like they're dramatically different from one another, which is nice. First, they mention the United Colonies, which they refer to as an idealized space republic. Now, personally, to me, this screams the good guys, but you really never know. It could be much deeper than that. They sound like the people who set out to create a space utopia in the stars, because that always turns out great. Every time. The next faction they go on to talk about is the Free Star Collective. This faction is the one that, to me, sounds the most interesting. They refer to this faction as the Space Western faction, the Frontier faction, and just looking at these images, it gives me real heavy Mos Eisley vibes, you know.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
This is probably the pretty morally ambiguous faction. Probably not quite lawless, but pretty damn close, you know, for the rogues and the scoundrels out there who don't exactly want to go into full-blown criminal, murder, or psychopath territory. They'll probably also do a whole lot of exploring of the less inhabited worlds in the star system, which sounds pretty neat. Either way, though, this faction sounds really cool, and I like the vibe that it's given off. Who doesn't want to be slinging revolvers in outer space? It sounds badass. Space cowboys, I'm in. Sign me up. The third faction they talk about is Ryujin Industries. They call this faction a mega corporation, so I'm assuming it's going to be something kind of akin to what you would have seen in the Outer Worlds, where everyone that is a part of this faction is a worker who probably owes some indentured debt to the massive megacorp. Maybe they're corrupt, maybe they don't give sick leave, how dare they, or maybe they're lovely humanitarians who could do no wrong. However, I highly doubt that. Now, I feel it would be kind of important to bring up the fact that one of the devs mentions that this faction has one of the best starts, being that you would be attempting to get a job there, which sounds like a nightmare. Personally, if you guys don't have a resume filled out, you might as well go ahead and get started. I know I am right now, but that is about it for that faction. I'm hoping that when it comes to best start, I think that there's going to be a pretty straightforward part of the game where you are tasked with joining a faction, or at least getting involved with a faction to progress the story. So that's always pretty neat. Now, the fourth and final faction they mention is, quite honestly, the only one of these factions that they absolutely needed to have in this game, and that is the Crimson Fleet. Why do I say they needed this faction? Well, it's because they are space pirates. They are horrible people. They are the bad guys. What does this mean? It means that you can play through the game as a bad guy if you want to, which was really missing in Fallout 4 up until the release of the Nuka World DLC, which lets you play as the Raider faction. And don't you dare get into a political, philosophical discussion about why the Brotherhood of Steel are bad guys, etc. I don't want to hear it, okay? Because they are all pretty good guys. I'm talking about straight up bad to the bone, horrible people, cutthroat, you know, we're murdering people, we're stealing your money, we're killing your wife, all that stuff. That's what this sounds like. And you know, some people are just kind of wrong in the head like that, and they're into that kind of stuff. So, I don't know, more power to you. You freaks, go crazy. But another interesting thing they bring up here is that you can work with them, or you could potentially do something along the lines of go along with their schemes, but report everything that's going on to your real superiors and play kind of a space cop style character, you know, treading the line between good and evil to bust the perps and all that jazz. Hopefully, all of the factions will have that kind of depth and choice making, but we'll just have to wait and see until we have more information. But from what we have here, it does sound like the faction roster is pretty nicely stacked, and there should be options for just about everybody on any part of the spectrum, which is honestly great. And along with the character building I mentioned earlier, it should lend to a great deal of longevity and replayability for this game upon release. Now, the next big topic they go on to talk about is companions, yet another cornerstone of the Bethesda RPG formula. Kind of, it depends on the game really, but they say they are going to really try to go out of their way to make these companions in Starfield feel as realistic and believable as possible, reacting to the things you do, the people you associate with, whether you're a boxers guy, a briefs guy, etc., etc. Hopefully that runs a little deeper than Piper just giving you a big thumbs up whenever you pick a lock, but who knows. They also do mention in passing the word romance, but it could have been in one of those pretty generic, this is a romantic tale kind of deals. I really do hope they bring back in some of that romance from Fallout 4, maybe even build upon it. It'd honestly be crazy to see some Dragon Age, Mass Effect level companion interaction in this game, but I refuse to get my hopes up, so I'm going to stop. The last interesting thing they talk about in this episode is dialogue, more specifically, persuasion. Now, I don't know how many of you guys remember that little mini-game from Oblivion where you click the little thing in the circle that spins around and it does stuff. Typically, it'll make the merchant you're trying to rip off and swindle very, very mad at you to the point where they don't want to speak to you anymore, or at least that's what happened to me usually. But they say they want to bring back a sort of mini-game style thing for persuasion. They do make a point to say that it's not going to be like Oblivion systems, but there will be some nods to it, so it's going to have some kind of callback maybe. In the end though, they just stress that they want to have the dialogue feel as deep and engaging as possible, like a real conversation with the NPC as opposed to just clicking the right option over and over. To me, that sounds very, very nice, because a lot of what I love and a lot of what other people love about Bethesda RPGs is the character interactions, the conversations, and just conversing with some of these NPCs. So the deeper and more meaningful those conversations feel, the better and more robust the game is going to feel as a whole. Because a lot of what you do in these games is talk. Talk and talk. And if you don't like talking, you're probably not going to like these games. And if you do like talking and the talking sucks, you're probably not going to like these games. But if the talking's good, it could be a fun time. And that's it. That is everything they talk about in this episode, or at least everything that I thought was important enough to talk about myself. Definitely go check out their video for yourself as well, because first of all, it's a good watch. Second of all, I might have missed something. I might have missed some little sprinkle of feta cheese detail on top. I don't know. Go check it out, like I said. Now, guys, I want to know what you think about all of this information. To me, it sounds like they've really realized from their past few games they haven't been what they really could have been. And now, with the backing of Microsoft, with their new upgraded engine, with all this new technology, they're really trying to get back into those Bethesda glory days of old and give us something truly spectacular. Or I could be wrong. Who knows? If you like this video, it'd mean the world to me if you guys hit the subscribe button. If you hit that thumbs up, it'd help me out so much with this new venture I'm doing, talking about RPG stuff. If you like RPG stuff and you want to keep up to date with Starfield, with other new games that are coming out, many RPGs to come, hit that bell so you do not miss anything. Lastly, please come follow me over on Twitch and watch me die over and over in Elden Ring for several hours and want to pull my hair out. That'd be really great. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, you guys have a fantastic friggin' day. I love you. Kuro out. Mwah.